Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the most underrated players in Smash Ultimate. I have 10 players I'm going to be talking about with you today, and in order to just kind of evenly distribute it out throughout all of the regions of the game, I'm going to be picking 2 players from the major regions, which are Mexico, America, Europe, and Japan, as well as 2 players that aren't in any of those regions. And the players in this video could be people that you have no idea of. These could be people that are in the top 30. They're just people that I think don't really get the credit that they deserve, and let's just get right into it. Let's start off with the good old US of A, and the first player that I want to talk about is going to be Lima. Now, he hasn't been as good in 2024 as he was in 2023 because he was killing it in 2023. He's got a 3rd place at Coinbox IRL. He's got a 3rd place at Rise and Grind, almost beating Mia, as well as a bunch of other really good results, but he's still really good in 2024, getting a 4th place at Invitational, 9th place at both Cirque and Collision, as well as recently a 2nd place at Low Tide City. And while I would say that Tom P is the best bayout in the world now after his incredible runs at the 2P tier events, I still think that Lima plays the character the best that anyone can play the character because he is just camping you so insanely hard, and I think that's how you should be playing Bayo. She is one of the best whip punish characters in the entire game, and she also has some of the best punish game in the entire game. She's hitting you so incredibly hard, and she's able to dance around you effortlessly, and Lima just does it so well. He's such a patient player. He doesn't make mistakes. He waits for his opponent to mess up, and he capitalizes on them perfectly. And I think people are aware that Lima is a very good player, but if I'm making a crew battle with the top 10 players in America, Lima is on that list every single time. He is an amazing player, and as I said, his results in 2024 haven't been as good as they were in 2023, but they are still amazing, and I have a lot of faith that they're going to continue getting better. Next up is going to be Chase, and I feel like this is a player that often does not get the credit that he deserves, probably just because he rages online and people don't like the personality of that, but personally, I don't care. I think we need more drama in the Smash community, and Chase is one of the best players to bring it. His major results in 2024 haven't been crazy. They are still pretty good, though. 25th at LMBM, 49th at Genesis, and a 33rd at Collision, but it's the regionals where he has been particularly impressive to me. He's got a 7th place at Level of Expo, 9th place at Low Tide. He wins Psych Showdown over players like Alandis, SkyJ, and Mystery. Even looking at some of those late 2023 results, he's got a 4th place at Genesis. Blackie ends up getting 13th at Cirque. Like, Chase is such a phenomenal player. I would regard him as the best Palutena player in America, and that hurts my heart to say as a Luis fan, but you gotta give it to him. He's just been very, very good. He's also got the Steve and the Aegis in the pocket, and even though those characters definitely don't have as much impact, it's proving that he can play a multitude of characters at the top level. And in order to have success in the current meta of Smash Ultimate with Palutena, you just have to be fundamentally better than your opponent a lot of the times, because this is a character that lacks tricks. You know exactly what she is going to do, but if you can't stop it, then tough luck for you, and most people cannot stop Chase. We've seen this guy get top 8 at a major before in major upset. I definitely think that he can do it again, and once it happens in 2024, I feel like he's just going to snowball. And really quickly, before we move on to the next region, I want to give an honorable mention to Cosmos, because he has cleaned it up a lot in 2024. He's still got a couple misses here with Genesis and Kowloon getting 65th at those events, but he's got a 17th at Umabora and Collision. He's got a 9th place at Cirque, as well as a 9th place at both Level Up Expo and Diamond Dust. I think that 2024 is going to be a great resurgence year from Cosmos. We are already seeing it, and when he top 8's a major, I'm very confident that it's going to happen. I think he's going to get all that confidence back and return to that prime Cosmos that we know and love. Moving on to our next region of Mexico, and this next player is potentially the most underrated one on the entire list, and that is going to be Maister. I think if you were to ask people without looking at his results where they would rank Maister, they'd say he's somewhere in the 30s, maybe the high 20s, but in reality, this is a player that is a pretty much guaranteed top 20 right now, and in potential for a top 10 spot in the world. He's got a 5th place at Luminosity, makes big moves, 9th place at Genesis, 3rd place at Benita Harper, 7th place at Collision, 4th place at LSI, beating Riddles, Mars, Tweak, and Light. The only thing you could really hold against him is his 25th at Delta and 13th at Caglibi, which are still decent results for a P tier, just not for a player of his caliber. But also, every single Invader did bad at those events, so I'm not going to hold it against him too much. And I think the reason that Maister doesn't get the credit that he deserves is just because Mia has been so amazing ever since he kind of just blipped up out of nowhere. And there are a couple things that Mia is definitely better at. Specifically, the advantage that Mia has mastered that, but there's a couple things that I think Maister is way better at. I think the way that he uses the smash attacks and just spams the hell out of them, it seems trolly, I know, but it is so good on a character like Game & Watch. It allows him to go for a ton of soul reads. I think Maister reads into players a lot better than Mia. The way he pressures with forward air, I think, is better. Ledge trapping is really strong for Maister, even though that is a Game & Watch thing for sure. He is still very good at it. I think Maister has what it takes to become a top 10 player in the world this season. I mean, he's done it before. I don't see why he can't do it again, and I think he doesn't get that credit because Mia's just really good. Next up is going to be Waka, and he doesn't have any major results that we can look at in 2024, but he does have a couple of regionals. 5th place at Benita Harbor, 5th place at Best of the West, and a 3rd place at Psych Showdown, getting wins on Nexus, Skyjay, and Alendis, as well as picking up a win on Maister at Bonita Harbor, and he's got wins on Spargo in the past, even though the record is definitely in Spargo's favor. To be able to beat Spargo, the sword guy with Luigi, is very impressive. He also has a really nice record versus Alendis, 50-21 overall, and I think you can say this about most players in Mexico because only like 4 of them are able to consistently travel. But if Waka was able to go to major events, like Reiru, for example, able to go to a ton of major events in contention for top 10 in the world right now, I don't know if Waka would reach that level right away, but I think he would have what it takes to become the best Luigi player in the world. If he was able to get that consistent practice, able to prove himself at events week to week, he's just such an impressive player. And Luigi's by no means a bad character in the current meta just because your damage output is so strong, but it is incredibly difficult to be consistent. And as you can see from Waka results, even though there aren't a ton of them, he is top 8ing every single big event that he's going to. This is a player that is extremely impressive, and I really want to see him travel. Moving on to Japan, and my first player from Japan is going to be Snow. And maybe you would argue that he shouldn't be on this list anymore, considering that he just got a 5th place at Delta 8 and a 13th place at Kagaliwi 12. I think a lot of overseas people are now more aware of how good he is, but my counter argument to that would be, I don't care, I want to talk about him anyway. He's got 17th at Umebora, 17th at Kowloon, being his worst placements of the season. He's got a 4th place at Altcore, a 1st place at Sumobato SB44, a 3rd place at Sumobato SB45. He's got a 4th place at Itsukishima number 3, 13th place at Maizuma Ultimate 22, 9th place at Sumobato SB46, as well as a 2nd place at Maizuma Grand Wars, and that does really well those 2 P-tier events, like I mentioned. Snow right now is in contention for a top 20 spot in the world, if he isn't already top 20, easily the best Mario the game has to offer right now. And again, maybe you wouldn't want to include him on this list anymore just because people are a lot more aware, but initially I had my 2 players from Japan being Tama P and Snow, and Golden Week kind of ruined that, so I want to keep at least one of them in the video. Next up is gonna be Fui, and I think the reason that Fui often doesn't get talked about is simply because he is in Japan. It's really hard to be a Yoshi player in Japan competing for the title of the best when you're fighting against Ron and Yoshidora. Majority of the time, they are going to be taking the spotlight, but Fui's got some really strong results. Aside from the mishap at Kagadibi, where he ends up getting 97th, he's got a 33rd at Umebora, 5th place at Altcore, where he's able to get wins on Apollo Kage, Dio, and Aka, definitely his best run. He's also got a 17th place at Maizuma Ultimate 22, 13th place at Maizuma Grand Wars, and a 25th place at Delta 8. I think if Fui was in like any other region, he would be talked about constantly as one of the best Yoshi players in the entire world, and he is one of the best Yoshi players in the entire world. Top 3 in Japan, and there's no one else in the entire world aside from Japan that's really playing Yoshi at the top level. Maybe Mei you'd want to throw on that list, but he honestly doesn't go to a ton of events, so I could easily see Fui being the 3rd best Yoshi in the world. He is incredible at this game, and it's just kind of tough because Japan is Yoshi region. Moving on to Europe, and my first player from Europe, specifically from France, is going to be Crepe, and he unfortunately only has 1 major result this season, and it's also going to be his only bad result of the season with a 65th at Genesis. But aside from that, he only has podium finishes at big events. He's got a 2nd place at KR Banger 4, beating Eco, Orion, Modzai, and Gluttony. He's got a 3rd place at Game is Game, beating Ryukai, Gact, Naderyu, Siski, Raflow, and Gact once again, as well as a 1st place at KR Banger 5, beating Naderyu, Pew, Flo, Raflow, and Leon twice. He is easily the best Steve player in Europe at this point. Shouts to Big Chungus, he's very good, but Crepe has just leveled up massively recently. He also has a Rob and Wario in the pocket, and Wario is definitely a more primary character than the Rob, but Steve at this point has taken the mantle, and I can see why, because he has just been doing incredible stuff with this character. It's another example where if Crepe was able to travel to more events and attend more majors, he would very clearly be already top 50 in the world and very fastly rising that rank. I think Crepe is going to be one of the future players of Smash Ultimate, and we're already starting to see it in 2024. And my other player from Europe is also going to be from France, and that is Raflow. And this is another example of, I think people are aware that this is a very good player, but they're just not aware quite how good he is. His worst placement of the season is a 33rd at Umebora SB10, and considering how the Invaders were doing at the Japan events, honestly, not that bad. He's got a 17th place at Genesis, where most notably he gets a win over Mia, 3rd place at King Khan. He's got a 13th place at Battle of BC6, a win at KR Banger 4, beating Ryukai, Modzai, Gluttony, and Crepe. He's got a 5th place at Game is Game, as well as a 3rd place at KR Banger 5. And I think by the end of the year, or at least by the end of 2025, Raflow is going to be the best player in Europe. I do think that he is going to surpass Gluttony. He's been getting quickly better and better every single event that he goes to. As I mentioned at the start of the video, in order to have success in the current meta Smash Ultimate Palutena, fundamentally, you just kind of have to be better than your opponent, constantly outplaying them. You have the tools to outplay them, but you still have to execute it. He's also going to have a Samus secondary, and while Samus is definitely a much easier character compared to a lot of casts, it still takes a lot of talent to play a multitude of characters at the top level. Raflow is so good at this game. I really hope that we get to see this guy travel more, because I think if he was able to go to a bunch of events constantly, he would be an easy lock-in for a top 20 player in the world. Moving on to players that aren't from any of the major regions, starting off with Shinymark from Guatemala, and we all know that he was going to be in this video. I mean, he kind of has to be, right? This is a player that if he was consistently going to events, he would easily be top 10 in the world, and I'm very confident in saying that. The only event that he's been to in 2024 that's at least a big event is Diamond Dust, and he won without dropping any sets. He beat Wilds, MK Leo, MK Big Boss, Shattuck, the best player in America, and Onin. And I don't love looking at on-run results, but unfortunately, it's kind of all we have. He recently won Coinbox 100 and Coinbox 101 back-to-back, winning 13 sets in a row, by the way, in Coinbox 100. And in his last 10 sets versus Sonics, he has won 6 of them. And again, it is online results. It shouldn't be taken with 1,000% credit, but it's Sonics. That guy is in contention for best in the world. If you could beat him in any aspect of the game, even more than a single time, you are clearly very talented. I think Shinymark also plays the correct style of Pikachu, where you are the best camping character in the entire game, because T-Jolt is just a very oppressive projectile. And what's that? You hit me? Okay, well, I'm just going to side B off stage, and then I'm going to go under the stage, and I'm going to avoid the ledge trap, and Shinymark does it perfectly every single time. I need to see this guy compete, because I know he would win a ton of majors that he just isn't going to. And the final player that I had for this video was initially Kanaji from Australia, but he goes to Japan so often that it felt like kind of a cop-out answer. So instead, I'm going to give you an even bigger cop-out answer, and I'm just going to shout out Australia. There are so many talented players in Australia that really don't get the chance to prove how good they are, because no invaders come down to Australia for some reason, even though Japan is so close. And also, they don't really get the chance to travel to the US. You have players like Ghost, DD, obviously Strix and Jade is very good. Kanaji's very good. Raze, the Link Goat, is amazing. There are just so many talented players there. I really hope that we can have an event in 2024 that at least reaches a B tier or B plus tier, maybe even an A tier status, where you have a bunch of invaders coming down and these Australian players can prove their worth, because I do think that they are quite good at the game and just don't get the credit they deserve. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoy. The sport has been absolutely unreal as of late. There are a ton of people in Smash Ultimate that are incredibly underrated. Just because I didn't mention them in this video doesn't mean they aren't worth a mention. In fact, you should leave them in the comment down below so people are more aware of how talented they are. And while you're down there, be sure to sub. And with that, I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.